Welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast, where we dive into practical real estate investing advice to help you build long-term wealth.
Yeah, and today we're breaking down the BRRRR strategy, which stands for Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, and Repeat. It sounds a bit complex, but trust me, we'll explain it simply.
Absolutely. It's a popular strategy, especially for those wanting to maximize their investments, and it can be really effective if done right.
Right, and what we'll cover today are the key steps in that process, some common pitfalls to watch out for, and, real-life examples to make it all relatable.
And we'll also touch on how this strategy can fit into your overall investment plan, especially for folks over 40 who might be looking at retirement or financial security.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that each step in the BRRRR process has its own nuances, so understanding those is crucial.
For sure. So let's get into it. Starting with the first step, buying the right property. This can really set the stage for the entire strategy, right?
Exactly. You want to look for properties that have potential. Maybe they need a little TLC, but are in a good location.
And it's about finding that balance, isn't it? You don't want to bite off more than you can chew.
Definitely, and that's where doing your research comes in. So, Sarah, when we talk about the BRRRR strategy, it really resonates with folks over 40, especially right now, right?
Absolutely, Mike. I mean, with all the economic shifts happening, it's like a perfect storm for real estate investing.
Exactly. Many people in that age group are starting to think seriously about their retirement timelines. They want to ensure they have enough financial security to enjoy those golden years.
Yeah, and I think there's this emotional side to it, too. It's not just about the numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about feeling safe,
Right. Like, let's say someone named Tom, who's 45, just got a promotion. He knows he should be saving for retirement, but with inflation creeping up, he's worried. He doesn't want to just rely on his 401k anymore, does he?
No, not at all. And that's where the BRRRR strategy can really shine. It's a way to create that financial cushion, something tangible and reliable.
Exactly. Investing in real estate can provide a hedge against inflation. When prices go up, so does the value of the property, and ultimately, the rent.
Right, and it's not just about the cash flow. It's also about building equity, which can be so important as you get closer to retirement.
Totally. And I've seen it with clients like Lisa, who's 50 and just bought her first rental property. She was hesitant at first, but she realized that building equity now means she can tap into that later for her retirement or even help her kids with their first home.
That's such a great point. It's about creating a legacy, isn't it? Not just for yourself, but for your family, too.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the current market trends. With interest rates fluctuating, many people are sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the perfect moment. But sometimes waiting can mean missing out on opportunities.
Right. And with the BRRRR strategy, you're not just buying a property and hoping for the best. You're actively adding value by renovating and improving it.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. You're actually taking control of your investment. It's not just passive. You're making decisions that directly impact your returns.
And for someone over 40, that can be empowering. It's like saying, I'm in charge of my financial future.
Yes, and think about the potential market shifts. If the economy takes a turn, people will always need places to live. Rental properties can provide a steady income stream, even in uncertain times.
Oh, for sure. And, I'd love to share a story about a couple, Mark and Jane. They were in their late 40s and had been renting out a property for a while. When they learned about the BRRRR strategy, they decided to pull out some equity from their rental to buy another property.
That's a smart move. Leveraging that equity can really accelerate their wealth building.
Exactly! And it gave them a sense of security. They weren't just waiting for their current property to appreciate. They were actively building their portfolio.
And they could even use that additional income to help fund their kids, college, or pay off debt. It's all about creating options, right?
Definitely. And I think it's also important to think about the emotional aspect of financial security. When you invest in real estate, you start to feel that sense of stability, like you have a plan.
Absolutely. It's about peace of mind. I've spoken to so many investors who say that once they got into the BRRRR strategy, they felt a weight lift off their shoulders.
That's so true. It shifts the mindset from just surviving to thriving.
Right. And for those over 40, moving into this phase of life, it's a big deal. You want to feel like you're setting yourself and your family up for success.
Yeah, and with the transfer of wealth happening, it's essential to be proactive. Many people are thinking about how to pass on their wealth to their children or grandchildren.
Exactly. Investing in property now can help create that nest egg that can be passed down. It's like planting a tree that will bear fruit for generations to come.
That's a beautiful metaphor, and it's so true. It's about building something lasting in a world that can feel so uncertain.
Right. And, with the current economic climate, there's also a lot of opportunity. Some investors are finding great deals because others are too afraid to jump in.
Yes, that's the thing about real estate. It's cyclical. There will always be ups and downs. But having a strategy like BRRRR prepares you to take advantage of those cycles.
Exactly. And for those who might feel overwhelmed, it's about breaking it down into manageable steps. You don't have to do it all at once.
Yes. It's about taking that first step and then building on it.
Well said. And I think that's a great transition into discussing some core strategies.
Absolutely. Let's dive into how someone can start with the BRRRR method.
So let's dive into the BRRRR strategy. It's a pretty popular approach, especially for folks looking to build long-term wealth, right?
Absolutely. So just for clarity, BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's like a cycle of investing.
Exactly. And it starts with buying a property. Ideally, you want to find something that needs a little TLC, but has solid potential.
Yeah, and that's where the 1% rule comes in handy, isn't it?
Right. The 1% rule suggests that your monthly rent should be at least 1% of your purchase price. So if you buy a property for $200,000, you'd want to aim for at least $2,000 in rent each month.
That's a good benchmark. But you also need to consider the overall market, right?
Absolutely. If you're in a hot market, you might find that rents are higher than 1%, which is great. But in some areas, you might need to adjust your expectations.
And then there's the rehab part. What's your approach to that?
Well, I always recommend getting a thorough inspection first. You don't want to jump into a rehab without knowing what you're really getting into.
Right, like hidden structural issues or, outdated electrical systems.
Exactly. Once you have a clear picture, you can create a budget for the rehab. A good rule of thumb is to plan for at least 10 to 20% of the purchase price for renovations.
Interesting. So if you buy that $200,000 property, you might want to set aside another $20,000 to $40,000 for repairs?
Yep, that's a solid estimate. And it's important to stick to that budget as closely as possible.
What about the financing side of things?
That's crucial. When you're buying a property to rehab, many investors use hard money loans. They're short-term loans that can help you cover the purchase and renovation costs.
And they usually come with higher interest rates, right?
Yeah, typically higher than traditional loans, but they can be a good option if you need to move quickly. Just make sure you have a solid exit strategy in place, like refinancing into a long-term mortgage once the property is rented out.
That makes sense. So after you rehab, you rent it out. What's your goal with that?
You want to maximize your cash flow. Ideally, your rent should cover your mortgage, property taxes, and maintenance costs.
Right, and that's why it's important to calculate your expenses accurately, isn't it?
Exactly. A simple way to evaluate is the 50% rule. Allocate 50% of your rental income to cover operating expenses.
So if you're making $2,000 a month in rent, you'd set aside $1,000 for expenses?
Yep, that keeps it simple, and then you can see how much cash flow you have left over.
And after that, you refinance?
Yes. Once the property is rented and stabilized, you can go to a bank or lender to refinance based on the new value, which ideally reflects the rehab you've done.
So if your property is now worth $250,000 after the rehab, you can pull out some equity?
Exactly. You might be able to refinance up to 75 to 80% of that value, which gives you cash to invest in your next property.
That's pretty powerful. And then you just repeat the process?
Yep, rinse and repeat. But it's essential to have a robust deal evaluation checklist before you move to the next property.
What should be on that checklist?
Well, start with your budget for purchase and rehab. Then look at the potential rent. Don't forget to factor in the property's location and the demand for rentals in that area.
And what about the property type?
Good question. Single-family homes are popular for BRRRR, but duplexes or triplexes can also be great options because you can generate higher rental income.
Right. Plus, with multifamily properties, you have multiple tenants, which can reduce vacancy risk.
Exactly. And speaking of vacancy, that's another thing to consider when evaluating deals.
How do you factor that in?
A common rule of thumb is to account for a 5 to 10% vacancy rate in your cash flow calculations. It gives you a buffer for those times when a unit might be empty.
That's a smart approach. And I guess it's also wise to think about market trends.
Definitely. Look at the job market, population growth, and local amenities. All of that can influence your rental demand.
So if you're in an area where there are new jobs being created, that's a good sign for rental demand.
Right. And always keep an eye on comparable rents in the area. You want to make sure you're pricing your property competitively.
And don't forget about the property management side if you're not planning on being hands-on.
Good point. Many investors choose to hire a property management company, especially if they're scaling up.
What's your rule of thumb for choosing a property manager?
Look for one with a solid track record, good reviews, and transparent fees. Typically, they charge around 8 to 10% of your rental income.
That's manageable, especially if it saves you time and hassle.
Exactly. But, even with all these strategies in place, there are some common pitfalls to watch out for.
Oh, absolutely. Let's get into that next.
So, one of the biggest pitfalls I see with investors, especially those just starting out, is over-leveraging.
Absolutely, Mike. It's tempting, right? You see these properties that look like a great deal, and then you think, why not just borrow a bit more?
Exactly. The idea is that, you can maximize your returns. But what happens often is they take on too much debt, and then when things don't go as planned, they're in a tough spot.
Can you give us an example of that?
Sure. I had a client a while back who bought a duplex in a popular area, thinking the rental demand would always be high. They put down a small deposit and financed the rest. But then, a few months later, the market shifted.
Right, we've seen that happen.
Yeah, and suddenly, they were facing vacancy issues and had to cover the mortgage out of pocket. It became a financial strain because they didn't have a buffer.
That's such a valuable lesson. Always have that cushion, right?
Exactly. Cash flow is king. You really need to ensure that your properties can cover their costs and that you're not just relying on appreciation to make it work.
Totally. And speaking of cash flow, I think a common mistake is ignoring the real costs associated with owning a rental property.
For sure. There are always hidden expenses that people overlook.
Like what?
Well, take repairs, for instance. A lot of new investors underestimate how often maintenance will be needed.
Oh, I can see that.
Right? I had another investor who bought a property without doing a thorough inspection. They thought it was in great shape, but yeah, within months, they found a serious plumbing issue that ended up costing thousands. They had to dip into their savings, which they weren't prepared for.
That's a tough spot to be in.
It really is. And that's why doing your due diligence is crucial. If you spot red flags early, you can avoid a lot of headaches down the line.
What would you say are some of those red flags?
Well, if a property has been on the market for a long time, that's a potential red flag. You should ask why. Is it overpriced? Or maybe there are underlying issues.
And what about the tenants?
Oh, bad tenants can be a nightmare. I've seen investors get excited about a property, only to find themselves dealing with difficult tenants who don't pay rent on time or, cause damage.
That's definitely a scary thought.
Yeah, I had a friend who had to evict a tenant. It took months, and in that time they were losing money, not to mention the legal fees.
Wow, that's a tough lesson.
It really is. So when you're screening tenants, make sure to check their rental history and references thoroughly.
That makes sense. You want to minimize risk as much as possible.
Exactly. And then there's this idea of timing the market.
Oh boy, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, so many investors think they can time their purchases perfectly, waiting for that right moment to buy.
Right, like it's a stock market or something.
Exactly. But, the truth is, the market can be unpredictable.
So true.
I know someone who hesitated for months, waiting for prices to drop. Meanwhile, they missed out on a great deal because they got too caught up in trying to time it perfectly.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. The best approach is to focus on the fundamentals of the property itself rather than trying to predict market fluctuations.
So if you find a solid investment that fits your criteria, just go for it?
Exactly. You want to look for properties that can provide consistent cash flow and have potential for long-term growth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And don't forget about the hidden costs that can come up.
Like what?
Well, property taxes can change, insurance rates can go up, and then there are always those unexpected repairs.
Right, it's like a surprise waiting to happen.
Exactly. That's why it's important to factor in a contingency fund when you're calculating your potential returns.
So having that buffer really helps?
Yes, it gives you peace of mind. You can handle those surprises without derailing your investment strategy.
What about those who are already in a situation where they've made some of these mistakes?
Well, the first step is to assess your current situation. Look at your cash flow, your expenses, and your tenants.
Right, it's all about being proactive, isn't it?
Exactly. If you need to increase your rental income, consider minor renovations that could boost the appeal of your property.
Smart move.
And don't hesitate to seek professional help if you need it. A good property manager can really make a difference.
That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah, and remember, every investor makes mistakes along the way. The key is learning from them and adjusting your strategy moving forward.
Absolutely.
If you can stay adaptable and keep your focus on the long-term goals, you'll be well on your way to building that wealth.
So it sounds like the takeaway here is to stay informed, be cautious, and keep an eye on the fundamentals.
Definitely.
And with that mindset, you can avoid those common pitfalls and really thrive in real estate investing.
Exactly. Now, let's transition into what steps you can take next to solidify your investment strategy. So let's dive into some immediate steps that anyone can take, whether you're just starting out on this BRRRR journey or looking to refine your strategy.
Absolutely. I think the first thing to do is really get familiar with the market. I mean, having a good grasp of your local real estate market is crucial, right?
For sure. One of the best tools for that is Zillow. You can look up properties, see what's selling, and get a feel for the prices in your area.
Yeah, and you can even filter properties by type, price range. It's pretty user-friendly. You can also check out historical data to see how prices have changed over time.
Exactly, and speaking of data, another fantastic resource is the BiggerPockets calculator. It helps you analyze deals and understand cash flow, ROI, and other key metrics.
Oh, I love that. It's like having a little financial advisor right on your computer. Just plug in the numbers, and it gives you insights on whether a property is worth it or not.
And if you want something a bit more visual, DealCheck is another app worth looking into. It allows you to quickly analyze properties and compare different deals.
Right. Plus, they have a feature where you can share your analysis with potential partners or investors, which is super handy.
Yeah, collaboration is key in this business. And then there's Rentometer, which is great for checking rental rates in your area. You want to be sure you're setting competitive rents, right?
Exactly. Knowing the average rent can make a huge difference in your cash flow calculations. It's all about making informed decisions.
So along with these tools, I think a solid habit to start is analyzing at least one deal a week. Just pick a property, run the numbers, and get comfortable with the process.
That's a great idea. It builds your confidence and helps you spot good deals more easily over time.
And don't be afraid to join local meetups or real estate investment clubs. Networking is invaluable. You can learn from others, experiences, share tips, and even find potential partners.
Yeah, plus, it makes the whole process feel less isolating. You're not in this alone, and building relationships can lead to some great opportunities.
Absolutely, and if you're looking for more knowledge, I recommend checking out some real estate investment books. The book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner is a classic.
Oh, I love that one. It's so comprehensive. And there's also Real Estate Investing for Dummies if you prefer something more straightforward and easy to digest.
Definitely. And don't forget podcasts. There are tons of them out there. BiggerPockets podcast is a great one for real-world stories and strategies.
Right. Hearing from seasoned investors really puts things into perspective. It can inspire you and give you practical tips to implement right away.
Another habit to consider is setting specific financial goals for yourself. Maybe it's to purchase your first rental property by the end of the year, or save a certain amount for a down payment.
That's so important. Having a clear goal gives you something to aim for and helps keep you motivated.
And don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back. Start where you are, and remember that every investor has gone through the learning curve.
Absolutely. Each small step you take builds your knowledge and confidence.
So let's recap some of those actionable steps. Familiarize yourself with local markets using Zillow. Analyze deals with BiggerPockets Calculator or Deal Check, and check rental rates on Rentometer.
Right, and don't forget to set a deal analysis goal each week, join local meetups, and dive into some great books and podcasts for continuous learning.
With all these tools and strategies, you're really setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, and remember, it's all about taking those small, consistent steps forward.
So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together. So as we wrap up, let's quickly sum up those key takeaways from the BRRRR strategy.
Yeah, I think the first thing that really stands out is the importance of doing your research before you buy, right? Finding a property that has good potential is crucial.
Exactly. And then there's the renovation aspect. Investing in improvements can really increase your property's value and rental income.
Right, and don't forget about the refinancing part. It's all about pulling out that equity to fund your next investment. It's like a cycle that keeps going.
And then, of course, there's the rental management piece. Whether you're managing it yourself or hiring someone, making sure you have reliable tenants is key to maintaining that cash flow.
Absolutely, and all of this ties back to the bigger picture of building long-term wealth. Real estate can be such a powerful tool if you approach it with the right strategy.
Yeah, and it's never too late to start. Many people over 40 find that investing in real estate can be life-changing. It's all about taking those small, consistent steps.
For sure. If you found this episode helpful, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. And hey, if you have a big takeaway or a question, drop it in the comments.
And don't forget to share this episode with someone in your life, especially if they're over 40 and looking to dip their toes into real estate investing.
Next time, we'll dive into something really exciting. How to buy your first rental with no money down.
That's a game changer, so you won't want to miss it.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we're here to support your journey in real estate.
Yeah, take care, everyone, and happy investing.